The $600 secret. The moment Daniel reached into his coat pocket and felt nothing. No envelope, no folded cash, no familiar weight of the 6 crisp $100 bills he had carried every single Thursday for 2 years, was the moment everything began to unravel. He stood frozen on the sidewalk outside Clearwater Pharmacy, the November wind cutting through his jacket, people parting around him like a river around a stone. His breath fogged the cold air. Inside his chest, something clenched. Not panic, not quite. More like the quiet click of a lock that had been loose for a very long time finally snapping shut. He had forgotten the envelope. For the first time in 104 weeks, Daniel Chen had forgotten his dead daughter's money. Margaret had been 31 years old when she died. Ovarian cancer, stage 4, diagnosed in February, gone by October. 8 months. Daniel still couldn't say those words 8 months without the ground tilting beneath him. He was 63. He had buried his wife 12 years before, survived that. Told himself a man could survive most things if he was stubborn enough. He had not accounted for Margaret. She left behind a husband named Kevin Marsh, who had cried at the funeral in a way that Daniel had found both moving and slightly theatrical. Kevin, who had been laid off from his job at the architecture firm 6 weeks before Margaret's diagnosis, who had spent the better part of her illness being her primary caregiver, who had, Daniel had to admit this, shown up every single day, every IV drip, every scan, every quiet, terrible morning. So when Kevin, 3 weeks after the funeral, had shown up at Daniel's door looking hollowed out, looking like a man who had forgotten how to be a person, Daniel had done something without much deliberation at all. He had written a check for $600. For groceries, he'd said, for bills, for whatever. Kevin had tried to refuse. Daniel hadn't let him. "You took care of my daughter," Daniel said. "Let me take care of you, just until you're back on your feet." That was 2 years ago. $600 every Thursday in a plain white envelope that Daniel always left on Kevin's kitchen counter, never handed directly, because Kevin always flushed when he took money, and Daniel didn't enjoy making a good man feel small. 2 years, 52 weeks times 2, $62,400 total. Daniel, a retired civil engineer with a modest pension and carefully managed savings, had done the math exactly once and then decided never to do it again. The pharmacy door jingled as Daniel pushed inside. He wasn't even sure why he had stopped here. Force of habit, maybe. He picked up his blood pressure medication on the first Thursday of every month, and today was the first Thursday of November. But his mind was still on the envelope sitting on his kitchen table at home, on Kevin, on whether Kevin had noticed yet that Daniel was late, on whether he should call ahead and explain. "Mr. Chen." The pharmacist, Rosario, her name tag said, a woman in her 50s with reading glasses pushed up into silver hair, looked up from the counter. She had filled Daniel's prescriptions for 11 years. She knew his name, his medications, the name of his daughter. She had sent a card when Margaret died, a handwritten card which had meant more to Daniel than he'd been able to express. "Your lisinopril is ready," Rosario said. Then she paused. She looked at him in a way that made Daniel feel she was deciding something. "Actually, do you have a moment? There's something I've been wondering if I should tell you." Daniel blinked. "Tell me what?" Rosario glanced at the one other customer in the store, a teenager examining energy drinks near the back. She lowered her voice anyway. "Your son-in-law, Kevin Marsh." Daniel's chest tightened. "What about him?" "He fills prescriptions here, has for years." Another pause. "Mr. Chen, I'm bound by confidentiality on the medications themselves. I can't tell you what he's prescribed. But I can tell you, and I want to be very careful with how I say this, that I've seen things over the past several months that concern me. As someone who knows your family." Daniel set his hand on the counter. "Rosario, say it plainly." She looked at him for a long moment. "He comes in with a woman, young, maybe 25. He calls her his girlfriend. She let that land. They've been coming in together since at least April. He picks up her prescriptions too sometimes and he pays. Another pause. He doesn't look like a man who's struggling, Mr. Chen. He looks fine. He looks like someone who has money. The pharmacy hummed around Daniel. The refrigerator case with the drinks buzzed. Somewhere, a phone rang twice and stopped. Since April, Daniel repeated. I wouldn't have said anything, it's not my business, but you come in every month and I see how you look, and I know about Margaret, and I just thought, Rosario stopped, adjusted her glasses. I thought someone should tell you. Daniel sat in his car for 40 minutes. He was not, he told himself, an emotional man. He was an engineer. He dealt in load-bearing walls, in stress tolerances, in what structures could hold and what they couldn't. He had applied this same framework to grief. He had calculated his losses like a man reviewing blueprints, made adjustments, reinforced where he needed to, kept standing. He thought about Kevin at the funeral, the theatrical crying. He had been willing, had been actively choosing, to read that as authentic grief, because the alternative was something he didn't want to carry. He thought about $600 a week. He thought about April, 7 months ago, and Kevin had said nothing, had stood in Daniel's kitchen every Thursday and taken that envelope and said nothing. He thought about Margaret. Margaret, who had been 12 years old and furious when Daniel missed her school play for a work deadline, who had forgiven him a week later without ceremony, the way children sometimes forgive completely, who had called him every Sunday from college just to talk because she said he seemed like he needed to hear a familiar voice, who had, when she was 28 and falling in love with Kevin, said to Daniel, Dad, I think he's actually a good person, not just good seeming, actually good. Daniel had believed her because he trusted her judgment more than he trusted his own. Now she was gone, and he had been funding a man's new life for 7 months without knowing it. He started the car. He didn't go to Kevin's house. That had been his first instinct, to drive there, to confront, to reclaim something. But he sat with that instinct until it cooled, and underneath the anger he found something quieter and more important. He needed to know if he was right before he broke something that couldn't be fixed. He called his nephew, Samir, who worked in finance and had, in his younger years, done some work that Daniel had tactfully never asked questions about. I need to know if someone is lying to me, Daniel said. I need to know without confronting them first. Samir asked 4 questions. Daniel answered them. Samir said, give me a week. It took 5 days. Kevin Marsh had been employed since March, not at an architecture firm, at a tech startup doing project management, a job he'd apparently found through a former colleague. His salary, which Samir had obtained through means Daniel didn't want to examine, was $78,000 a year. The woman's name was Priya. She was 26, a nurse. She and Kevin had, according to her public social media, which Samir had simply read, been together since February. She referred to him in one post from August as my person. February, 1 month after the 2nd anniversary of Margaret's death. 14 months since Kevin had found employment. 14 months of $600 Thursdays, 12 of which Kevin had been earning a salary, 7 of which he had been seeing someone new and choosing silence. Daniel read all of this sitting at the kitchen table, his reading glasses on, a cup of tea gone cold at his elbow. The plain white envelope was still there where he'd left it Tuesday morning, already filled, already counted. He sat with it for a long time. He called Kevin on a Friday. I won't be bringing the envelope anymore, Daniel said when Kevin picked up. A silence, long and total. Mr. Chen. I'm not angry, Daniel said. This was mostly true. I'm something, but I don't think I'm angry. He looked out his kitchen window at the gray November sky. I just need to say this. I gave you that money because you cared for my daughter, because I saw what that cost you and I wanted to honor it. That's why I did it. He paused. What you've done with your life since, that's yours. I don't have a claim on it. Margaret wouldn't want me to. I should have told you, Kevin said. His voice was rough. I know that. Yes, Daniel said, you should have. Another silence. I'm sorry, Kevin said. I am sorry. Daniel believed him, not completely, but enough. Take care of yourself, Daniel said, and hung up. He sat in the quiet of the house for a long time after, the kind of quiet that accumulates in a home where only one person lives. He thought about $62,400 and whether he regretted it, and he found, reaching around inside himself for the answer, that he didn't. Not exactly. It had been given in good faith. You couldn't always control what happened to good faith once it left your hands. He thought about Margaret saying actually good, not just good seeming. She had been wrong a little. Kevin had been good seeming, and also actually good, in the specific moment she needed him to be. Maybe that was the most any of us could manage, being actually good when it counted most, falling short in the ordinary times after. He didn't know. He wasn't sure that was a generous enough read. But he thought Margaret, who had been a generous reader of people, might have arrived there eventually. He put the envelope in the drawer. He made a fresh cup of tea. Outside, the first real snow of the season had begun to fall, soft and indifferent and quietly covering everything. The way time did, not erasing what was underneath, only making it harder to see. Daniel watched it for a while. Then he picked up his phone and called his nephew Samir, because he hadn't spoken to Samir's family in months, and the boy had 2 young daughters who were growing up without knowing their great-uncle very well. It seemed, Daniel thought, like something worth correcting. While he still had the time.